Welcome everyone to the sanctuary of Lakeshore Avenue Baptist Church. As we are recording, it is Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020. We are in the midst still of the shelter-in-place order in California, so maintaining appropriate social distancing. We are here in the sanctuary recording a service for the third Sunday, or near the third Sunday of Easter. Our preacher today will be Pastor Carolyn Matthews. Stan Fong is our organist, offering technical sound and camera assistance are Chuck Johnston, Jerry Wolf, Don Dresser, Larry Sims, and their efforts, as always, are greatly appreciated. We always invite you to visit our website, www.labcoakland, for all the offerings of our services, studies, and gatherings. As always, it's good to worship God together.
Jesus walked, yes he walked. Jesus walked that lonesome valley for me. Don't you know Jesus walked, yes he walked. Jesus walked that lonesome valley for me. Yes, he climbed. Jesus climbed the hill of sorrow for me. Don't you know Jesus climbed? Jesus climbed. Jesus climbed the hill of sorrow for me. Jesus climbed the hill. He climbed the hill. Jesus climbed the hill. He climbed the hill. Jesus climbed the hill. He climbed the hill. Trail of Jesus, Jesus stumbles on the road. Jesus stumbles on the road. On his back he carries our fear. On his back is such a dreary, weary load. Yes, it's such a dreary, weary load. Such a dreary, weary. Jesus bore, he bore the cross for sinners. Jesus bore, he bore the cross for sinners. Jesus bore, he bore the cross for sinners like you and me. Don't you know Jesus walked? Yes, he walked. Jesus walked that lonesome valley for me. Don't you know Jesus walked? Yes, he walked. Jesus walked that lonesome valley for me. Yes, he walked that lonesome valley for me. Oh yes, he walked that lonesome valley for you and me.
Most of us will admit this is a strange time in which we find ourselves. It certainly is different from any time I can remember. As someone who considers themselves an introvert, it would at first seem a great time for someone like me. However, choosing to be sequestered and having to be are two very different things. And because of this, I have come to realize just how much I enjoy being with my Lakeshore family. So along with many others, I look forward to the time we can be together. Until then, though, we navigate these strange and very different waters. Yes, in these days when we are apart, there are still ways we can live out our faith. Life is different, and if we are honest, there will be no going back to normal. However, do we really want to go back to normal? What is or was normal within the American cultural context? Whatever normal was did not prepare us for something like this. This time of sheltering in place has caused many of us to take a really close look at the world around us. One of the things this time has done is cause people to reach out to one another in a way they had not done before. Neighbors are checking on neighbors, and the value of a phone call or a note in the mail is viewed with a deeper appreciation. And those of us who tend to push ourselves to get things done are realizing now the need to just stop for a minute. Also, many in our society are beginning to recognize the value of those who are ubiquitous, but not always noticed. More are now coming to understand the importance and centrality of their work within our everyday existence. Justice and caring for one another did not begin with Jesus. And this is the reason we take a page from the Old Testament and God's instructions to the religious leaders and to the people. God, the Creator, the maker of heaven and earth and all humanity, has always been concerned with how we treat one another. When the people of Israel were brought out of bondage and were settled in the Promised Land, their residents there came with instructions to care for all people. Even though the land would sustain all, there would be people in need. In fact, it's because there would be enough for all that God instructed the people to care for the less fortunate. God had a plan for that, but it would call for individuals to see the value in their fellow human beings. It is precisely because the land was verdant and fertile, there would be enough for all. So when those who owned land and vineyards went out to harvest their crops, they were to leave what was left for the widow, the stranger, the orphan, and the needy who resided within their land. As it says in Leviticus 19, verses 9 and 10. Now when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the very corners of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest, nor shall you glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather the fallen fruit of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the needy and for the stranger. I am the Lord, your God. The same is true for us today. We hear stories now of long lines of people waiting at food banks to pick up food. And at the same time, we hear of milk being poured down drains and fields being plowed over. Is there some way this surplus could be distributed to those in need? Is there not a way that the farms and dairies could be compensated and these items be delivered to food banks? We know now that there is money in the treasury because we are finding billions of dollars to alleviate the pressures of this pandemic. In a functioning governmental system, this might be a distinct possibility. A nation that can transport and feed an army to any part of the world at any time, surely could not that same nation also be able to get food where it's needed? These days also, have I stated earlier, caused us to appreciate folks we have now designated as essential. This includes mail carriers, store clerks, restaurant workers, fast food workers, delivery people, and many others. These are the same people that somehow were not deserving of a living wage or having access to health care and paid sick leave. Leviticus 19, 11 through 13 says, "You shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie to one another. You shall not swear falsely by my name, so as to profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. You shall not oppress your neighbor or rob him. The wages of a hired man are not to remain with you all night until morning." Now, in that society, there were people who were paid on a daily basis. This may not happen to the same extent as it was then, but there are people who are day laborers, and this is a perilous time for them. But how about we extend that to people who work hard, maybe work more than one job, and are living month to month, paycheck to paycheck? And how many ways are working people being paid and yet still being robbed? For those who may not have really thought about it, it's now the time to take note and consider those who keep things flowing and functioning in our daily lives. Technology is helping to keep us connected, but this time has also made us aware of the importance of technology and the connection to Wi-Fi in our society. Our children are being taught via the internet. But what about children and folks who can't afford Wi-Fi? A middle school counselor I know told me how they had to advocate for one of the students who had been sick, and they had to stay home, and they couldn't do their schoolwork. Now, the school provided Chromebooks for each of the students, but they needed Wi-Fi, and this student would go to a friend's house and connect each day. Well, if she was sick, she couldn't go to her friend's house. So the counselor had to go to the teacher and help the teacher understand that the student shouldn't be penalized. With our sheltering in place, that means libraries are closed, and children who may have been able to visit the library or visit their friends to take advantage of Wi-Fi can't do that now. Yes, some of the wireless companies are stepping up to the challenge, but there is a need that preceded this sheltering in place and is ongoing. However, rather than just focus on negative, perhaps we should open our eyes to the possibilities and discoveries to which we have been made aware during this time. Some segments of our population have always known these things, and perhaps we can hope that the rest of the country, along with our elected officials, will also come to realize this too. In Leviticus chapter 19, verses 33 and 34, it says, "When a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall do him no wrong. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." And also the latter part again, "You shall love your neighbor as yourself." When Jesus used these words, he taught in essence that we are all neighbors. The world is way too small to treat anyone as an outcast, because we are all connected. It is now shown that it's not just the CEOs who are the building blocks of our economy, but it is all the working folks, the people within the factories, the stores, the shops, who keep our economy going, but more importantly, help us move together through our daily lives. And in this time of crisis, we have come to appreciate even more our fighter fighters, policemen, the teachers who work to teach online, and all those who work to restore us to health and keep the environment in which we find medical care sanitary and clean. The same people who are simply asking for a living wage are now considered essential. Hopefully, this time has helped us either to come to appreciate or to appreciate even more those who move us along daily, keeping our society working. What this time has done is shed a light on the dangers of the discrepancies that have existed within the dissemination of health care in our society, and the fragility of tying access to health care to work or to a job. It is not the time to blame, but to embrace. So, when we think about going back to the normal, we need to be moved to think about the need to establish a new normal. This new normal in which we work to help people secure a living wage. A new normal in which health care becomes accessible to all and not just tied to a job. A new normal in which education is equally and fully funded. Teachers are fairly compensated. Schools have all the counselors and healthcare workers that are needed, and our children have all the supplies that they need. Although apart at this time, we can still consider how we might work together to live out our faith in bringing about a new normal in our world and in our society. So the song today is a song that's set to a familiar hymn tune, but the words come from Carolyn Winfrey Gillette, and the song is entitled, "God May Your Justice Roll Down." God, may your justice roll down like the waters you send here, and may your righteousness flow like a stream without end here. Praying this prayer, many have Great were the risks they endured, bearing your hope and salvation. We as your church now remember these stories of others and pray your Spirit will send us as your sons and daughters. Show us the way we too can serve you each day till justice rolls down like waters.
Thank you, Pastor Carolyn. The call to do justice cannot be neglected, especially in the face of the current pandemic. A prayer for justice. Loving God, as we pray, our thoughts are drawn to Jesus' words to the religious leaders of his day. Woe to you, for you tithe mint, dill, and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of law, justice, and mercy, and faith. It's not that washing our hands, staying 6 feet apart, and wearing masks while in public are unimportant. Indeed, these practices have been proven to save lives. It's that we tend to focus on them without connecting them to other weighty matters. Indeed, we have used them as an excuse for forgetting about the weighty matters of justice. Thus, we pray for justice in the realms of medical care and medical insurance. May all receive what they need to be well and to stay well. As we pray for justice, we acknowledge that in these United States, we cannot pray for, long for, or work for justice of any kind without taking into account matters of race and the cruel realities of societal racism. The virus is no respecter of persons, but we, especially we white people, are. Thus, we must confess that we have blamed the pandemic on people of Asian descent while remaining unmoved, as it disproportionately affects our black and brown sisters and brothers. Forgive us for putting energy into denying these realities. Forgive us for weaving self-serving narratives about getting what we deserve as we observe the suffering of others from safe distances. Forgive us for arming ourselves with guns and banners and flags and threatening to shut down the already fragile and overburdened system if we, the exceptional ones, don't get exactly what we want when we want it. Justice. It is a weighty matter. Help us to pursue it even when a deadly virus is afoot, and even when it is more appealing to think about something that makes us feel better about ourselves. It is in the name of the one who embodied justice that we pray. Amen. Thank you again for worshiping with us. We intend to be back again next week. Until then, again, visit our website, WWLABC Oakland. Study with us, worship with us. We gather at 10 o'clock via Zoom on Sunday mornings. Thank you also for your ongoing support of Lakeshore Church. We are grateful and we remain committed to serving the matters of justice in our witness, our worship, and our work. Until we meet again, God bless.